Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your professor today as we demystify the central nervous system. We're going to break down exactly how you feel, react, and process the world into an accessible, visually driven masterclass. If you've ever wondered how a tap on your finger registers in your brain in literal fractions of a second, well, you are in the right place. All right, grab your mental notepads because class is in session. Here's a quick look at our syllabus for today. We're starting at the absolute micro level with the synapse, moving to how our body translates the physical world with receptors, checking out our emergency reflex arcs, and finally, building all the way up to the massive neural highways of the brain known as ascending tracts. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The synapse. Neural bridges. You know, it's pretty wild, but neurons don't actually touch. There's this physical gap, the synaptic cleft. It's only about 200 and 300 angstroms wide, which sounds infinitesimally small, right? But to an electrical signal, that's a massive river to cross. So how do they manage to jump across? Well, they actually abandon electricity for a second and hop into special chemical boats called neurotransmitters. So let's look at how this translation plays out on the presynaptic side. When an electrical impulse, or action potential, hits the end of the nerve, it forces these voltage-gated channels to pop open. This lets calcium flood in from the outside. Now, I want you to think of calcium as a sort of chemical key. It unlocks the machinery, forcing these little cargo ships, called vesicles, to fuse with the membrane and dump their chemical cargo, the neurotransmitters, straight into the gap. We call this release exocytosis.
Okay, so once those chemicals float across our little bridge and bind to the next neuron, one of two things is going to happen. It either hits the gas pedal or it hits the brakes. If it hits the gas, it creates an EPSP, an excitatory postsynaptic potential. That's a depolarizing signal basically hyping the next neuron up to fire. But if it hits the brakes, you get an IPSP, an inhibitory postsynaptic potential. This hyperpolarizes the membrane, effectively telling that next neuron, hey, chill out, do not fire.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. One single excitatory signal is usually way too small. We're talking just a few millivolts. It has to reach a specific threshold to actually trigger an action potential. So the name of the game here is summation. These tiny signals have to add up, and they can do this in two ways. Spatial summation is when signals hit simultaneously from completely different spaces. It's kind of like three friends pushing a stalled car all at exactly the same time. Then there's temporal summation, which is all about time. This is when one single source fires in rapid machine gun succession, stacking signals on top of each other before the first one can fade. Oh, and the biological rule for that? The rapid-fire sequence has to happen in under 15 milliseconds. No way around it. Moving on to Section 2, receptors, the biological translators. Now, in the textbooks, receptors are officially called biological transducers. Why the fancy name? Well, think about it. Your brain and nerves are basically locked in a pitch-black room, right? And they only speak one language, electrical potentials. They have no idea what heat actually feels like or what a sunset looks like. They completely rely on receptors to take physical energy, like the mechanical pressure of a handshake, and transduce or translate it into the electrical currency the brain can actually read. We actually have 5 distinct classes of these translators on staff in our bodies. Mechanoreceptors handle physical touch and pressure. Thermoreceptors, you guessed it, temperature. Chemoreceptors deal with chemicals, which gives us taste and smell. Electromagnetic receptors capture light. And finally, nociceptors. These guys are incredibly specific. For instance, there's a nociceptor called the vanilloid receptor that literally exists just to sense pain and noxious stimuli. That is its whole job. Yeah, class, I've got a bit of a trick question for you.
Do you think all these translators create a standard, exciting, depolarizing electrical signal when they get activated?
Well, you'd probably think so, but nope. The absolutely fascinating exception to the rule here is our vision. The rods in our eyes, our electromagnetic receptors, actually hyperpolarize when light hits them. It's so counterintuitive. In the dark, they are actively firing away, but the second the physical stimulus of light strikes them, their electrical potential drops. It's just a brilliant little biological quirk of our sensory system. All right, Section 3, reflex arc, the autoresponder.
When we talk about a reflex, it's all about one thing: speed. When you're in real danger, you simply do not have the time to consciously think it over. So a true reflex is an involuntary response that completely bypasses the boss, your conscious cerebral cortex. It's a hardwired, automated circuit designed to give you an instant reaction to protect yourself, often before you even realize you're hurting.
Let's map out this emergency journey. It consists of exactly 5 components. Picture this. You accidentally touch a scorching hot stove. Step 1, the receptor in your skin screams, "Hot!" Step 2, the afferent or sensory nerve rushes this signal toward your spine. Step 3, the integration center in the local spinal cord processes it instantly, no need to call headquarters in the brain. Step 4, the efferent or motor nerve immediately fires a signal back out. And Step 5, the effector, your arm muscle, contracts to yank your hand away. 5 steps, the whole shebang happening in literally a fraction of a heartbeat.
And finally, Section 4, Ascending Tracts, Neural Highways.
If a sensory signal wants to make it all the way up into your conscious awareness, it has to follow a very strict 3-neuron path. Think of it like a relay race with exactly 3 runners. The first runner grabs the baton from the receptor at your fingertip and sprints into the spinal cord or lower brainstem. Then, the second runner takes it from there, running it all the way up to the thalamus, which is basically the ultimate sensory relay station in the brain. Finally, the third runner takes the baton from the thalamus and hands it off to the sensory cortex. And that is the exact moment you finally say, "Ah, I feel that."
But just like in a city, not all neural highways are built the same. We have 2 very different route types, depending entirely on what kind of information is being carried. Because honestly, the nervous system totally plays favorites and prioritizes certain signals over others.
So we have these 2 main pathways, the dorsal column system and the anterolateral system. The dorsal columns, those are your high-speed express lanes. They use thick, heavily insulated A-alpha and A-beta fibers that can travel up to 120 meters per second. That's incredibly fast. And what gets VIP access to this fast lane? Fine discriminative touch, vibration, and conscious proprioception, which is just a fancy way of saying knowing exactly where your limbs are in space. Now, on the other hand, the anterolateral system uses slower, thinner fibers. This is the rugged local road. It carries crude touch, temperature, and interestingly enough, pain.
Now for my absolute favorite part, the mind's trick, law of projection. This is where the brain plays a truly remarkable trick on you. The law of projection states that no matter where a sensory nerve gets stimulated along its entire 3-neuron highway, your conscious cortex will always project that feeling back to the very beginning of the road, to the receptor. So, if the middle of the nerve in your arm gets triggered, your brain will still insist that your fingertip was touched. Crazy, right? So, if the brain always projects the sensation back to the origin of the nerve, it leaves us with an incredible mystery to ponder regarding amputees, phantom limb syndrome. When a limb is amputated, the physical receptors are totally gone, but the severed nerves leading up to the brain, they're still right there in the stump. So based on the law of projection we literally just talked about, what do you think happens when those severed nerve endings fire a signal? How does the brain interpret a signal from a limb that no longer exists? I'll let you ponder that mind-bending trick of our central nervous system. I really hope this explainer has illuminated the incredibly complex, yet beautifully structured ways your body communicates with itself. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.